No problem.
Thank you.
So hello, everyone, and welcome to the Round Rock Public Library, the Biz.ability program, which we do workshops in the spring and in the fall for small business owners. And this program is very successful because of our partnership with Austin Score. And you've just heard from Bill about their mentorship, their free mentorship program. One thing I would like to draw your attention to is probably it is the first time and probably the only time we will ever do this is the business plan competition. So the library, the Round Rock Public Library, we originally had only $2,000, and then Dell, HEB, and the Round Rock Chamber pitched in, and now we have $13,500, including the Friends of the Library pitched in. And so we have this nice little pot of money. And the New York Public Library has been doing a business plan competition for startups. And I asked them if they would mentor this library, and also they allowed me to take all their rules and eligibility and judging criteria. So what you see here on this page is all the rules. The competition goes through March. So you have until March 31st to submit your business plan. Up until then, you can meet with your SCORE mentor for guidance, and the plan will use a library resource called Gale Business Plan Builder. So I'm going to take you to that site. So right now, if you look at my screen, you will see the research tab. Just remember that all of you are doing research. So that way you'll remember that of all the tabs in the library, you will be going to the research tab. And for your first time, just go to by category. Now, when you go to category, remember you're doing business research. And so here you go. This Gale Business Plan Builder, this is what in our library world we call a database, an online resource. And public libraries around the country have these online resources. Some people do more for business, some people do more for children. I think this library, the Round Rock Public Library, has a good balance for small business owners, children, and also lots of recreational material as well, like ebooks and e-audiobooks and e-music. So here you go. This is your business, all the databases we have. I'm just going to show you real quick, point you to a few that will help you. If you are not familiar with lynda.com, now it's called LinkedIn Learning. If you can see where I'm pointing with my mouse, LinkedIn Learning is the very same database that Google, IBM, Microsoft, Cisco, all of them use to train their employees on all kinds of new software or new programming languages. It has so many wonderful videos. If you went by yourself and purchased lynda.com, it would cost you $19.99 a month. But with your Round Rock Public Library card, it is free. Now, your Round Rock Public Library card, to get one, so to access all these databases, you must have a library card, and your PIN number is the last 4 digits of your phone number. So with your Round Rock card, you'll be able to access this information. Right now, the city of Round Rock, we're offering free cards to non-residents as well, to anyone in Texas, but you must come into the library to get your card. So you'll just come in, show us your driver's license with your current address, and stop by and get a library card so you can use these resources. And the business plan is designed for you to use the fabulous resources that your libraries have, or that the Round Rock Public Library has for its citizens. So there are 2 workshops next week, the 12th and the 18th, that focus only on library resources. Next week's workshop is on reference solutions, What this is that it's the same resource that 80 out of the 100 Fortune 100 companies use. So almost 80% of big companies use this resource. Of course, they pay a lot of money for it. And small businesses typically pay $3,000 per module, and there are about 6 modules. But with your library card, again, this is free. This is the resource for your business plan that you will use to do charts and graphs and heat maps. And all of this will be taught to you next week at next week's workshop. The other one I want to point out to is Demographics Now. If you want to study a particular demographic in a zip code, what their lifestyle behavior is, what their purchasing behavior is, you would go to this. And we are offering that class on February 18th. That class will talk a little bit about the Gale databases, both of these, but it will focus on the financials of this product, because that's what you will need to submit with your business plan for the business competition. The business competition is only for Round Rock residents. Your business must operate in Round Rock, and you must be at the startup phase with less than $10,000 in income. But like Bill just said, everyone, anybody, even an established business, it's good to have a business plan. It's very, very helpful for you, especially for funding. And Ted will talk more about that. So I'm going to let Ted take over. And thank you for attending. Please register for the other workshops. You have to register for each one individually. Thank you. And I'll answer any questions in chat. Ted?
Very good. Thank you very much. Let me go to share my screen. Oh, where did you go? Where did we go? Zoom. There we are. Okay. And share my screen. There. And share. All right. And now we will okay. Well, let's try this again. Let's go back to the top. There you go. And now we'll share the screen. Can any of you see or hear me?
Yeah, we can see you. You probably have to just hit slideshow up there at the top and then start.
Oh, okay. So you can see that?
Yeah, we see your PowerPoint.
All right. Oh, okay. I can't see my score screen, and so I thought maybe I dropped y'all off. But if you can see me,
We can see this one's blank.
obviously you don't want to look at that slide. So
Looks like you're starting at the back end.
Exactly. Let's try to hurry up and get back to the beginning. Lots of slides. I want to tell all of you that every one of you probably has a slightly different reason for wanting to know how to write a business plan. And I'm sorry that we're having to do this way since I've got it started. Here we go. We're getting close. Writing a one-in business plan. All right. So what we're going to do, I would like, as we go through all of this, I would like several of you, one or two maybe, to share what it is you want out of learning to write a business plan or writing a business plan. You know, what is your business idea, briefly, and what is the purpose that you want to write the business plan for? And we'll do that as we go through introductions. And then we'll go into the what and why of the business plan. We'll talk about the 9 sections of the business plan, of a typical business plan, and give information on how to build each of those sections of the business plan. The last section is your financial considerations, which I personally think is the single most important part of creating a business plan, is to build a financial model, a time-based financial model of your business and how it operates from day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year. And if possible, do at least several year projection of what your business is going to be like, where you expect the income to come from, what do you expect your expenses to be in operating the business, et cetera, so that you can get a clear picture based on not only your ideas, but ideas that you have gathered in creating your business plan from sources that you have reached in creating your business plan to build this reasonable business model so that you can understand your business on a month to month, year to year basis. And then we'll talk about resources, but the Round Rock Library actually is a major resource for you. And so that we've already covered part of that. So usually when we present this course, my partner, Phil Storin, provides the financial operations section, but he is out of town at a family wedding, I believe. And so I'm going to cover it. I don't have near the experience that Phil does, pardon me, but I do have quite a bit of experience in entrepreneurial startups, running a business, writing a business plan, raising funding, and all real world stuff. And I'll try to share those with you as Phil would share his with you when he was doing that. To give you an idea about myself, I have a degree in aerospace engineering from the University of Texas at Austin. I have worked over my career in a lot of aviation sort of related businesses. I've also done startups in other fields in the past, and I've also done a lot of teaching of business plan and building and managing and organizing businesses. So while I have a degree in aerospace engineering, I try to talk to my students and other people when I'm writing a business plan in the way that I would want someone to talk to me. In other words, don't overwhelm me, but help me understand the pieces and parts. So with that said, what I'm going to go through here is a significant amount of information. And oftentimes you may feel that you're trying to absorb way too much information. And unfortunately, that is true of this presentation. There's just a lot there. However, two good things about that is that we will send you a copy of this PowerPoint presentation, and we will also send you a link to the video recording of today's session. So where you might have missed something today because it was just too much to take notes on or something, you can always go through it again and again and again if you need to and want to, in order to piece all of this together and get a little bit better idea of what's going on. So let's take a couple of you, and I don't have my score screen up here, so hopefully you can do it by voice or something. If you would be interested in sharing who you are, what your purpose of the business plan is, and what your goal of your business idea is. Do we have anyone?
If you'd like to unmute yourself, you can do that to respond to Ted.
I'm trying to get my participants thing up here.
Oh, we got it. I'll keep it on. Kimberly, it looks like is unmuted.
Hi, my name is Kimberly Battle, and I am a real estate agent in property management. And I was recently HUB certified. So the purpose of my business plan is so that when I present my proposals, I can also include my business plan.
And your proposals are what? What will your proposals consist of?
The proposals are for contract work with the cities and municipalities.
Okay. And so the information you're providing them is about the contract, the particular contract work that you want to do. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And so is that the primary purpose of the business plan, is as a kind of a sales document to your customers, potential customers?
Yes, and also I want to use the business plan to position myself when I go to apply for business loans.
Okay. And your business, the application for your business loans would be based upon arrangements that you've made with these potential customers. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Well, that's an important use of a business plan. And however, a lot of the parts of the business plan that we're going to cover may not be 100% applicable in terms of presenting it to your bankers or your potential clients, simply because they're very, very directed to the operation of your business. And so, and I'll go through that as we get along today and talk about who the audience for a particular part of your business plan would be. So what I would recommend, it's an excellent idea, and your business plan is where you're going to develop all that information. However, you may not want to give all of it to some of those people. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Understandable. Thank you.
Good, good. Who would like to be next? All right, who would like to be last?
Mandy is unmuted.
Great. Hi, Mandy. Are you there, Mandy?
So there is one in chat. Acer is creating branding design for wellness, for a wellness business.
Okay, we'll go to Nasser then. I don't know why we're not hearing Mandy. Nasser, can you hear us?
My name's Alex. I have a input.
Sure.
Hey, I am a partner in a general contracting firm. We are a family business, and we've kept it really small because I think my goal is to use a business plan to help definitely monetize the business, not just from we've got it's for future planning and really trying to understand internal infrastructure as well, to make sure that we're maximizing opportunity with the right amount of staff and being able to financially prepare for that. And if a loan is needed based on this financial model, how much, and time frame wise, to get that paid down, things like that.
Excellent. Well, again, that's an excellent use of a business plan. And it is called a business plan because the idea is to help you plan and run your business. And so that's an excellent use of a business plan. So I'm glad to hear that. And the very idea that you're talking about using it to help you monetize, to be properly prepared for different opportunities and things like that financially, I think is very thoughtful. Even if you're not looking for investment capital in your business, just being able to project the financial operations of your business to the point where you can plan ahead for upcoming opportunities is a very important part of the business plan. And with that said, I would like to emphasize that a business plan that you create about your business is a living document. It's a document that you should keep by your side and refer to regularly, because I promise you, no matter what your business is, it isn't going to operate exactly as you planned it to operate. And that's simply because the real world out there is a little more random. And so having your business plan handy and well thought out gives you an ability to make changes, tweaking it, if you will, as different things happen that you perhaps didn't plan on, maybe big things, maybe small things. And that's why we call it a living document. It's something that you will, in running your business, update on a regular basis as your business morphs and changes. Thank you very much for that. Okay. So I'm going to go on to, and I appreciate that sharing, but I'm going to go on because we've got a lot of material to cover. So the big question is, what is a winning business plan? What does that mean? What is a winning business plan? Well, very simply, it's a business plan that helps you make your business successful. That's what winning is. And there are many, many ways for a business plan to help your business be successful. So what sort of things do you need to know when you're creating a business plan? Well, one of the questions you need to answer is, why do I want this business? What's the purpose of this business? Obviously, there's probably in there a desire to produce income for yourself, and you don't want to discount that. That's a very important thing. But you also want to provide something else, and that something else may be something very dear to you, and you want to be sure that whatever that other thing is also taken care of while you are growing your business. So why do I want this business? Now, who are your customers? It's important that you define that, because a customer can be different under different situations. So who are the customers? In other words, who are the people who are going to write the checks to pay for your service or your product? Who are the customers? How are you going to reach those customers? Now, if you're working with governments, it's pretty easy to identify because there are fewer of those than there are some other types of customers. But still, how will you reach those customers? Who are the principals that you need to talk to? What is the mechanism for getting them aware of your operation, your services, your products? Why would they buy my product or service? So who are they? How can I reach them? And why will they buy my product or service? What is it that I'm offering to them that will cause them to buy my product or service? Is my product or service unique? They can't get it anywhere else because it's absolutely unique and it is something that they want. Or are there a lot of people who provide a similar service that I am competing against? What is the advantage that I offer them over all of those other people who are providing a product or service? And yet, so these are questions, again, that you need to ask yourself when you're starting to build a business plan. How do you price your product or service? Again, if you have a unique product or service, you can price it one way. If you are competing with others, the obvious way to compete is to just reduce your price on your product or service, but you may not have to do that if you can provide a better service or a better product. My specific example of that is Apple computers. They don't sell into the low end of the computer market. They produce very expensive phones, computers, and other products, yet they are the largest company in the world. And just this last quarter, they made more profit than any other company in the history of the world. So even though they aren't kowtowing to the low end price of the market and they're not competing at the low end, they are very, very successful. So you don't have to just compete on price in order to be very successful in your business. Okay, what will it cost to provide my product or service? This is pretty hard sometimes, because so often we as entrepreneurs don't really understand all of the costs of producing a product or service. I certainly didn't. Back in the 80s, I started doing computer consulting. The aviation business was in a great recession. And I was one of the few people who knew how to program a computer and knew how to set it up. So I was doing consulting. And I started selling products because there was a lot of need for different particular products. By the way, this was before IBM made a PC. And then IBM made a PC and it became much more competitive. And I had one customer, I'll never forget, who was a good customer, but he finally came to me and he said, you know, Ted, your prices are way too high. So I'm going into competition against you. And he named his company HTLP, High Technology, Low Price. And he started in the business. And about a year later, we stayed friends. And about a year later, he came to me and he said, you must have known something I don't about what it costs to do all of this. He said, so I'm changing the meaning of the acronym to high tech list price. And it's just because unless you've been in that business providing that product or service, it's hard to know all of the costs of doing business. So what will it cost to provide my product or service? Now, one of the things you can do when you're writing your business plan is go to people who can help you figure that out and fill in the gaps in what you know. So that leads to how much money will I need to get started? Well, if you're an entrepreneur and you're just getting started, you maybe have some savings that you've put aside, and you know that then you have set aside that savings to get your business started. Again, knowing financially how much money you'll need is typically answered by building a spreadsheet model of financial model of your business. And you will soon learn that there are just a lot of things that go into getting started, you know, paying for all sorts of things, deposits for utilities or whatever that you may not have thought of when you were wanting to go, or, you know, down payments on rent or other fees that you may not have thought of. How much money will your business make? And obviously that depends on how much it costs to provide the service or the product, and how much you can sell it for, and therefore how much money you'll make. All of these things end up being the answers to your business plan. This is what your business plan, the questions your business plan answers. So a good business plan is a statement of goals and how you intend to achieve them. So what are your goals? Write down your goals. And then the business plan becomes a method for figuring out how to achieve them. It then is a roadmap to your business success. It basically, like I said, on a regular basis, compare the roadmap, the business plan, to the actual performance and make adjustments as you go. It's like any trip, you know, make adjustments as you go. This is so important. It has to be an objective look at your business. We all tend to, as entrepreneurs, to be very enthusiastic about the potential of the business we're going into. And sometimes we actually undershoot and it's much more successful than that. But most of the time we overshoot and it's not that successful. About 10 or so years ago, I was working as a consultant to a medical products company that was developing a very innovative medical product for use in hospitals. It was totally innovative, a one-of-a-kind sort of thing. And I was helping create information to help train doctors and nurses how to use this product. And they asked me to help them build their financial model. Well, I have no knowledge at all about hospitals and how all of that works, but they did. So I used the material that they gave me to build an Excel spreadsheet financial model to project the first 5 years of their business using the information they gave me. Well, they got the product, they got all the patents, they got the product into manufacturing and started selling it. And it turned out that their actual sales were less than 10% of their projections. Now that's because they, like most entrepreneurs, had high, projections for their product and couldn't understand why it wouldn't sell as well as they projected. But it turned out that there were other things that were objections to their product that they hadn't considered. And so they're in business, they're making money, but they're not making the kind of money that they expected in that business plan, in that business model. And it becomes a reference point that keeps you on track, so that, again, you can go to any one point and look at where you're supposed to be and keep you from going down rabbit holes that don't head directly to your goals. It's that kind of reference point. And it is so easy in an entrepreneurial environment to go down those rabbit holes, to think, oh, well, I could probably make some money over here and I'll get back to my original idea next. That may be true, but your business plan becomes that reference point to keep you on track. And if that track that you've gone on is a better track, then it urges you to update your business plan. Again, plan your business. So it's a communication tool. It's directed at all sorts of people. It's directed to the founders and your families, obviously, because you're trying to solve all of their questions and answers. Your bankers need parts of your business plan, not all of it necessarily, but a lot of it, because you're going to ask them to loan you money and they're going to want to know what that means, what you're going to use the money for. You'll have advisors who will be helping you with your business, and they need to clearly understand your business. So they're going to need your business plan. You're going to have accountants that are going to help you file your tax returns, do your daily accounting or whatever. And it helps to have them understand your business. And your business plan is a good way to do that. But again, some of these people don't need the entire part of the business plan, all of it, just the parts that affect them. You're going to have attorneys that need to understand your business in order to help you navigate some of the legal things. Suppliers and vendors will need some of the information in your business plan, but not all of it, because you don't necessarily want them to see all of your planning, just what part that they have that affects you and them. Employees and customers and other firms all will need a little bit. Your employees don't need to know all of the business plan, and your customers certainly don't need to know all of your business plan. But the information that you develop in writing your business plan will be some of the information will be very useful to your employees, to get them on board, to get them enthusiastic, to get them to understand, what it is you're trying to do and where you think this is going to go, and other firms as well. And then, of course, one of the major purposes of writing a business plan is to find investors, because you may have the money for the startup, but you may not have the money to grow the business when it's time to grow, or to expand the business in other areas. And you may not even have enough money to actually get into business, to start up the business after you've gone through all of the early stages of getting the business going. So it's important to organize your information. It's a guide for your decisions. It'll prepare you to run your business. It'll provide you with a professional presentation to show colleagues and stakeholders, investors, and things like that. And I can't emphasize how important that really is, to be able to present your business professionally. Your business plan needs to be professional, but you also need to be very professional in how you present yourself in your business plan. And it can help you secure investment capital. And again, it will keep you on the right track. So this is a typical outline of a business plan. Typically 9 sections to the business plan. And this is the order in which someone will read your business plan. In other words, this is the order in which they will get to the information about your business. A cover letter, A cover letter goes to the person that you are giving the business plan to. It is unique to that customer. It is not a general letter, dear X, here is my business plan, blah, 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 blah. It has to be very personal because that personal connection is so important, and especially if you're looking for money, but if you're looking for anything, for them to properly react to you. The executive summary, which is one of the most important parts of your business plan, is a summary of your business plan. It's not an introduction. It is a summary. It summarizes in just a few pages everything they're going to read when they read the business plan. It's in the area of persuasion. We're often told, and I debated in high school and I debated in college, and we were always told that if you want to parade, you want to convince someone of your point of view, you start out by telling them what you're going to tell them. I'm going to tell you in the next few minutes this, this, and this. Then you go into the process of telling them all of that stuff. And then at the end, you enter a summation that tells them what you told them. Well, that's what an executive summary does. It's that first part. It's, I'm going to tell you this. And the rest is the rest of the business plan is, I'm now telling you all this stuff. And then the last point is going to be your sales pitch about, I told you this, this is what it all means. So are you looking for funding? If you are looking for funding, there are 4 types of funding that you could be looking for. You could be looking for seed capital, startup funding, operations funding, or growth funding. Now, seed capital is the stuff that if you're a real startup, you're doing now. You're doing research. You're actually writing the business plan. You're finding, let's say, a management team for your business or other resources that that business is going to need. At the end of that, you don't have a business. You basically have a plan. And in most cases, the seed capital comes from the entrepreneur rather than from an outside investor. And so you have savings set aside. You maybe you've been thinking about this for a while, and you have saved up a year's worth of income money to hold you together until you get the business running. That's very typical, or 6 months or 3 months or however long you think it's going to take you. The startup money is money to actually start the business. You rent space, you acquire equipment, you buy inventory, you start paying people if you have employees and things like that. That's startup money. Now, sometimes startup money comes from an outside investor if they buy your business plan. But again, if not, then this is part of the money that you will have saved up to run your business before it starts producing a positive cash flow. Once the business produces a positive cash flow, that means you're getting more money in than you're writing out in expenses. Then your business can be self-sustaining. But up to the point of positive cash flow, you need startup funds. Operations money is money, again, either from an outsider, or the money that you've planned on is to implement marketing plans, to start production of a product, money to get you through cash flow issues. And then growth capital is expansion and acquisition money. I want to grow the business. I have a competitor over here that I want to buy, or I want to add 6 more sites here in Austin to my tea room or whatever. And oftentimes that requires, my business is successful, but I need extra money. So your business plan can be addressed to all of these needs, but typically you don't address all of these needs in your business plan. You would typically in your business plan maybe address the first three needs to get all the way into operations. Okay, so there are several funding sources that we have in the United States. The first funding source is you. FFF, they call it, the Founders, Family, and Friends. And basically, that's the money you've put aside, you and your partners, money that Uncle George or Aunt Betty has been willing to loan you or give you, and friends who believe in you. An angel investor is a wealthy individual or group of individuals who has been through the entrepreneurial stages, and they want to do two things. They want to give back. They want to help you the way they were helped. And so, and in Austin, in the Austin area, there are a large number of angel investors and angel investor groups. They're a very large number. And so, and you are often, if you have a good business plan, invited to go to one of these angel investor groups and do a presentation of your idea. And that typically angel investor people are willing to start investing right at startup of your business, maybe a little bit after or a little bit before. And they tend to be more favorable toward startup and smaller businesses, but obviously they're always looking for that big one because the other goal that they have is to make money for themselves. Venture capital groups are much larger groups, professional organizations that fund companies and look for a payout through either an initial public offering on the stock markets or some form of acquisition or exit strategy where they're going to, like, a Facebook or an Apple or a Microsoft looking, or many others, is looking for either a large deal to expand or something like that. Venture capital people usually don't go to the angel investor level. They're there for the large ones. And then, of course, banks. Now, the one thing about banks that I hope you all know, but if you don't, I'm telling you right here, banks are not investors. They are a funding source, but the banks loan money. They loan money at an interest rate and require you to pay it back typically on a monthly payment basis. And the loans they give you have to be collateralized. So if you need $100,000 to start up your business, they'll be happy to loan you that $100,000 with monthly payments. And they're going to ask you for what collateral you have to protect them for that loan. Tell you an interesting story. My dad was starting a business, and he had gotten a large, well, he had sold the idea of what he was going to do to the Dow Chemical Company. They're one of the largest chemical companies in the world. And he had made presentations to Dow, and Dow liked his plan, and they gave him an irrevocable letter of credit to get started. So Dow Chemical, a very wealthy and well-established company, gave my dad a letter of credit. Well, we were living in a real small town, and my dad took this irrevocable letter of credit to the banker there. Now, a irrevocable letter of credit is collateral, and especially off of someone like Dow Chemical Company, it is collateral. But the banker, very small little bank in West Texas, looked at it and he said, "Well, Leo," he says, "I don't know who this Dow Chemical Company is, but I think they ought to put up some trucks or something as collateral." Well, my dad had to drive all the way into a large city to find a bank that wasn't that small that would loan him on the letter of credit. So what does your funding partner want to know? This is interesting. If you're getting money from an outside investor, the first thing they're going to want to know is, Who is going to be running the company? Do they have the necessary experience to execute the plan? Who's your management team? That's the first question they're going to ask. In raising money, writing business plans and going to investors, the first thing I was told, starting back 20, 30 years ago, was you may have a great idea, but there are a lot of good ideas that fail. And the ones that fail is because they don't have a management team that has the experience necessary to execute. And so they'll turn down a really good idea because of the management team. So the number one thing is the management team. Well, you're a sole proprietor type investor or entrepreneur, and you're going to be doing it all at the beginning. I mean, you're going to be doing, everything. You're going to be purchasing and all of that. You're going to be doing the payroll. You're going to be sweeping the floor. You're going to be doing it all. So you still have to be able to show them that you have the necessary experience to execute the plan until your business gets to the point that you need to hire other management people. It's extremely important. Don't forget that. Okay. The other thing your funding partner is going to want to know is, what is their exit strategy? What is an exit strategy? It means, how will we get our money back? We're going to loan you, we're going to invest in you $1 million, $500,000, whatever it is. How do we get our money back? In other words, we're not going to go with you to the grave with this business. We're in a business to make money, and we expect to be able to get our money back within 5 years, 10 years, some time, but a very short period of time. You may be in the business to take it, for your whole life's career. They're not. So how will they get their money back? When will they get their money back? The sooner the better. And will they get their money back with a significant profit? Now, this just usually upsets people. They're going to want a significant profit. Why? Well, the reason for this is that these investing partners typically will fund, let's say, 10 deals a year. And of those 10 deals, only one of them will make a big profit. The company itself will make a big profit. 2 others will basically kind of be struggling to get by. 3 others will be at break even or less. And then the others just go out of business immediately. So there's only one business out of 10, and this is data that I've been given by venture capital people. Only 1 in 10 of their investments will make any money at all for them. And so if they're doing that kind of investing, they need to get a large percentage more money out of your business than the others, because the others are going to go out of business. It's normal business. So again, we're back to the 9 parts of the business plan. And the management plan is the single most important part of the business plan in order to raise money. The executive summary is the second most important part of the business plan in terms of closing and raising money and actually getting people to help you, not just money. Then there are several other parts of the business plan that are very important for raising money. These 2 parts don't go with the business plan, but they are parts of the business plan. Number 10 here is called a one sheet. It is your executive summary condensed to 1 sheet of paper. It is an executive summary. It has every part of your business plan referenced, and it's condensed down to 1 sheet of paper. Now, it can be front and back of that 1 sheet of paper, but you have to have a sales document called a one sheet that has your executive summary on 1 piece of paper that you can hand someone when they ask about your business. And then the 11th part of this, again, it's not in your business plan, but it is your business plan. It's called your elevator pitch. You've probably heard that expression. An elevator pitch is a 30-second explanation of your business to someone who might be interested. They call it an elevator pitch because picture this scenario. You get into an elevator on your way up to maybe see your accountant on the 11th floor. And just as the door is closing, Michael Dell walks in to the elevator. And he nods to you and you recognize him and you nod to him. And he says, well, what are you up to? You now have 30 seconds to a minute maximum in the elevator to tell him who you are in clarity enough that he's going to ask at the end of that elevator ride, here's my business card. I want to talk to you more. That's a really good idea. That's the elevator pitch. It is so important. Brevity and clarity. So if you're looking for funding, remember your management plan, your executive summary, your one sheet, your elevator pitch, and then finally your cover letter. Your cover letter says, dear Mr. Dell, I enjoyed meeting you yesterday at the XYZ bank building. As I told you, blah, 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 here is my business plan. I would love to sit down and go over the details with you. You know, it's unique to who that is getting that business plan. All of those things that you see in red are done after you write your business plan, because they are summaries of the business plan you've created. They are not the business plan itself, and the information they include is the information that you found when you were writing your business plan. So here's an example of a business plan I wrote about 10 years ago, I guess. My family had developed the Windecker Eagle airplane, had gotten it through Federal Aviation Agency administration certification and got into production. There was a big recession in the aerospace industry, especially, and the company closed and was sold, and it was never put back into production. Around 2010, got the rights to the airplane back, and I wrote a business plan to put it back into production. Now, the airplane's already designed, already approved. All you have to do is build a factory and build them. But building an airplane is a very big deal. It's a complex piece of work. So if you look at the table of contents on the right, this business plan was 65 pages long. And again, you can see portions of it. So I wrote this business plan, and then I wrote this one sheet. This is the one sheet that goes with the business plan. What you're looking at is the front and the back of one page. Now, doing a one sheet, it's important that you have something that's compelling for them to look at. In my case, whoever I was showing this to had to love airplanes. So I showed them a picture of the existing airplane that I wanted to build and a future airplane that I plan to build after we got this one into production. Now, here are the sections that are so important. Management team. The management team is listed there, and to do something like this, you need a quality management team. And I had found some of the best people in the industry who had agreed to join the company. I wasn't paying them yet, but they agreed to join the company as soon as we were funded. And actually, they helped me write the business plan, as a matter of fact. Here's the other section, the financial advantages. In other words, what is the company going to do? Why is it going to do that? And this is the what we think the business plan shows the company will make, how much money it'll make. The advantages on the left, and over on the right, the summary of what we project the first 5 or 10 years to be like. And then finally, the exit strategy for the investor. If you invest in this, this is how and when you can expect to get your money back, all in one sheet. Now, I've already told you all about the cover letter. It's an important point is that you need to, on anything you give someone, you need to include your name, the company name and address, and all contact information in anything you give somebody, an investor, so that they don't have to go looking for that business card or whatever. So your executive summary, I've already covered this. It's a summary. It's usually 2 pages. The executive summary in my aircraft business plan, I think, was 3. I have always tried to keep it down to 2 or 3 at the most. The one sheet, of course, was two pages, one piece of paper. The executive summary is designed to encourage the reader to continue reading, to read the rest of it because they're interested. It's interesting. So it's a sales document. You can't lie in it. You shouldn't exaggerate in it. It just has to summarize the information that they'll find in more detail going on. It's got to be professional, complete, and concise. And it has to explain how much money in terms of loans and investment capital is needed and when it'll and how it will be spent. So I want to go back. I was hired by a small software company here in Austin sometime, oh gosh, 15 years ago or so. And they had been in business for about 10 years, and they were looking for investors to invest money for them to update their software. They were doing good, and they were looking for someone to help them update their software. And their update ideas were brilliant, excellent ideas. And they hired me to help them. They had written a business plan, and they'd been marketing it for about a year and had no interest whatsoever. So the first thing I did was I read their business plan and I rewrote their executive summary. That's the only part of the business plan I rewrote, was the executive summary. It did some minor editing, but mostly the executive summary. And I started marketing it to people in Austin in the investment capital business. Well, we found an investor. We sat down and negotiated a deal, and this company was looking for $1 million. And we did presentations of the software and the whole management team and all of that. And they agreed to invest the $1 million. And then what happens after that is a thing called due diligence, where the investing company goes through and looks at everything, all the skeletons in the closet and all of everything. They're looking for problems in case, there are any. And the software company is doing due diligence on the investment company and all of those things. So about less than a month into the due diligence, which usually is a 3 to 4 month sort of deal, the investor called me and he said, "Ted, I need better resumes on all of the management of the company." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "We need full resumes, curriculum details, and all of that." He said, and I said, "Well, they're in the business plan." And he said, "Well, what you have in the business plan is just a short paragraph after each one's name about their experience. We need, full page, several pages on each one." And I said, "Well, in the management section of the business plan down there, their full resumes, 2-3 pages long, are included." There was this silence. And he said, "Oh," he says, "I guess you caught me because I haven't read the business plan. I made the decision to fund this company based on the executive summary." So that's how important the executive summary is. So in the business plan, you need a business description and goals, company mission, objectives, what type of business you'll be in, who are your customers, who is your target market, general description of your products and services, brief description of the industry you're in, what kind of business you have formed, and we'll go into that a little bit later. But I'll give you the answer now. Most startups are better served by forming their company as a limited liability corporation, an LLC. It's inexpensive and it does protect you from liability like a corporation does. Any other form, like a partnership or sole ownership, does not protect you from personal liability. What kind of indebtedness you have, who the suppliers are, and startup capital, any existing obligations. This software company that I helped raise the $1 million for, apparently during due diligence, the investing company found a skeleton in their closet. I don't know exactly what it was, but my assumption was that it was somebody back in the day, 10 years, 15 years before, when they were starting their company, had loaned them some money. I don't know for sure. But the problem was that it was an obligation, an existing obligation that they had not listed in their business plan, in their financial model. And therefore, it was an obligation that the company would have to pay out of the funds that the investors would provide. And they said, we're not willing to do that because that'll take a significant amount of the investment money to pay it off. So the solution was the investing company said, you two partners, the founders of the company, have to pay it off before we fund the company. So those two partners took out second mortgages on their homes in order to pay this obligation off. That's why if you're writing a business plan, you want to include all the obligations, especially if you're looking for money. It turned out to be a real oof. All right. So where do you get information to answer these kind of critical information questions about your business? Well, there are all sorts of sources, like at the Round Rock Library and other sources that can provide this kind of information for you. And this is just an example of what kind of data you're wanting, and on the right, what kind of resources are available on the internet and other places to answer those kind of questions. And for instance, this is when you look up the business you're in, there's a North American Industry Classification System, NAICS, that you can type your information into. Like here, you type in whatever it is, coffee shop or clothing manufacturer, retail store, whatever it is, and it will start giving you the NAICS codes for that group of businesses. And as you put in more information, it will start giving you codes that are unique to that small part of that group of businesses. And then you use that code for finding other information out on the web or wherever. So you need a definition description of your product and service. You need, for a product business, it's a product. What is the product you're selling? What are the specifications? If it's a service business, what are the services? Is a package of services? You need to describe that clearly. Do you have exclusive or proprietary services or products? You have to have concise examples, not generalities. Again, because obviously if a investor is looking at it, they need to know exactly what it is you're going to be doing. And your capacity and ability to deliver. You need to be able, in these products, to communicate to customers the benefits, your advantage, how your offering your products are unique, and how you fulfill a niche in the market. Your market research, who is your target market? Is it local, national, or global? What are the buying habits of your customers? What is the size of your market? And your market doesn't have to be large. It just has to be large enough to support your business. What is the trend in the market? Is it growing, stable, or declining? It doesn't have to be a growing market. It can even be a declining market if you have a product or service in that market that is unique enough that you are going to make a difference and create sales. Example, back in 2007, Apple came out with a smartphone called the iPhone. In the industry, all of the experts in the industry said, boy, are they stupid. The smartphone market is tiny and going down. And they're going to just go out of business in a few years because no one wants another smartphone. Well, Steve Jobs had a different idea. And guess what? Apple sells more smartphones in the United States than any other builder. And they are now the largest smartphone seller in China. And I think they're the second largest in the world. And something like 67% of Apple's business is selling smartphones. And they made more profit last quarter than any other company in the history of the world. So it doesn't matter if the market is declining if you have a better idea, but you have to know what your market trend is, and you have to plan for that trend. How do your competitors get business, if there are competitors, and perform on your business in your market a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis? What is that? It's something that looks like this. I got this off of the web from WordStream as an example. You list the strengths of your product business. You list the weaknesses, things your company lacks, things that your competitors do better than you, and so forth. What opportunities are available to you? Well, maybe it's an underserved market. There are few competitors, et cetera, et cetera. And what are the threats to those opportunities? Well, there are a lot of competitors emerging, regulatory environment, all of these things. Do this analysis in order to be able to position your business with your business plan. Now, here's some research analysis, generals using the NAICS code up at the top for a hardware store versus a consulting business. This information gives you the breakdown of the financial operations of a hardware store versus the consulting service. You can see there's a significant difference in the financial operations of these two businesses. A retail hardware store, for instance, typically has a return on asset, a 2.7% profit margin, whereas a consulting service is 8.6%. Interestingly enough, I keep talking about Apple, but they just gave their quarterly report, and their gross profit margin is 48%. And they're selling all they can make. And return on total assets is 60% for a consulting service. This gives you information for building your financial model. If you find the right code for the type of business you're in, this will tell you what other people have been doing. Here again, examples of market research data sources, the questions on the left and the sources on the right. How many readers are there in Austin that have been there less than 5 years? Your product is designed for newbies in the Austin area. Over on the right, the Austin American Statesman has that kind of information. Okay, what is your marketing strategy? How will you communicate and interact with potential clients? What is your competitive analysis? How is your offer different? What gives you a competitive edge over others in your business? You need to include distribution, promotion methodology, how you intend to price it. If you're a retail operation, especially location. What about customer service? Customer service has become one of the major parts of a business, whether it's a retail location or an internet type business, in determining who is successful. Customer service. Who's going to do it? What do they do? Where are they going to do it? When? How? What kind of customer service are you going to provide? When I was in the retail computer business, I did that business for 16 years before I sold the business. There were a lot of other people in the business, and a lot of people came and went in the 16 years that I was in business. And the only difference between me and the others was customer service. I told my people that the customer is always right. If the customer is always wrong, look at rule number 1, the customer is always right. Give them service, do to them as you would want to be done yourself, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we were successful. We weren't the largest, but we were still standing and making money when all the others had gone out of business. And remember, you can do a lot of marketing free on the internet. How do you collect competitive information? Ask directly, like a distant competitor who you aren't going to be competing against. Suppliers, friends, be a customer yourself to a similar business. Join a trade association, and they typically publish all of that information. Here's an example of looking at a landscaping type business from 4 different approaches, either as a local nursery, a distant nursery, a local gardener, or an internet gardener sort of space, and what you can expect from your research in terms of market share, market size. Here is a features and benefits analysis that you should do about your product or service versus the competition. You have a feature of your service. What is the benefit to the customer? And this happens to be a copying machine sort of features and benefits analysis, but it again tells you about how your business needs to operate in order to achieve your goals. Marketing strategy, you have to be able to describe your features and benefits. And if you're going into different market segments, you need to create a features benefit for each segment. It's very important that you know how you're going to compete. And then you need to know how to communicate the features and benefits in each different segment. Operations, okay? If you're going to produce something, you need to look at the aspects of production, training your production people, quality control, location, where you're going to be doing this, zoning requirements, power resources, buildings and plants and all of that, the legal environment, for permits and licensing, et cetera. Personnel, how many people are you going to need? What are their skill sets? How much should you pay them? When should you pay them? How do you recruit them? How do you reward them? Inventory, how much inventory should you keep in stock? What is the ordering cycle for that inventory? What is the delivery cycle for those inventory? How do you value your inventory? And if you are shipping out finished goods, you're getting inventory in and you're finishing something and shipping it out, how do you handle that? Who are your suppliers? Is your supplier a sole supplier? That's very dangerous. During the pandemic, a lot of sole supplier organizations went out of business or closed down. And hence, all of a sudden, we have product availability problems. So it's best to have more than one supplier if at all possible. You need a backup, and you need to qualify your suppliers. Credit policies, accounts payable credit policies. Will your supplier give you credit? And then accounts receivable. Will you give your customers credit? No, one nice thing about accounts receivable now is it's so easy to get credit card authorization in a small business that it's you really don't have to give your customers accounts receivable terms other than just give me your credit card. But you may get to a point where your customer, if they're like a municipality or something like that, will require credit terms. How do you plan to operate? Hours of service, payment terms, compliant complaint processes, pardon me. All of these things have to be answered to answer how your business is going to operate. And then finally, how you build your financial model, which is the key to your business. Again, all of the things we've talked about before in your management plan. Who's going to make the decisions? What is their experience? Who's responsible for each function? Like I said, you as a small entrepreneur probably are going to have to do all of these things until such time as your business has grown to the point that it's time to hire those people. But payroll, taxes, accounting, inventory, for taxes and accounting, you can typically hire a professional to do it on a part-time basis for you. Some of the other things, you won't be able to do that. And then we always recommend that you get an advisory board for your business. Now, at SCORE provides mentors who, again, are provided free. They're people like me who've been in business, who've learned a lot of things and are willing to give back. And these mentors in SCORE can be part of your advisory team. Again, you can ask them to be part of your advisory board. You can ask them to help you find an advisory board members for your business. And they're just people there to help you solve problems and answer questions. A board of directors can do the same thing, except a board of directors has a fiduciary responsibility in the company, and it's much harder to get someone on a board of directors than it is to get an advisory person. And oftentimes the boards of directors are required to be paid. And then, like I said, your professional support consultants like lawyers and accountants and insurance agents. So now we're going to talk about the financial operations of your company. And this is the single most important thing that you need to do when you're writing a business plan is build a financial model of your business. Now, in my aircraft manufacturing business plan, the financial model was many pages long. We did a 5-year projection, which is what people in the industry were asking for, of the startup, going into production, sales, and all of that. We did all of that, and it was huge. It was many pages showing the financial model, and yours can necessarily be much simpler than that, but you need to create a financial model to show show yourself, and then the other customers of your business plan, what your business plan says about you. So you need to hire financial and other consultants. You should have a bookkeeping system. QuickBooks is the most widely used bookkeeping system. And there are a lot of financial consultants and accountants who provide accounting services who use QuickBooks as a way to maintain the financial data in your business. My son has a business in Fort Worth, and his bookkeeper tax consultant runs QuickBooks, and my son has a copy of QuickBooks in his business. He's got 5 or 6 employees, and he has a copy of QuickBooks in his business. They enter all of the stuff they do, sales and purchases and all of that, and QuickBooks does their payroll. Actually, not. They're now using outside payroll service, and then all of that information he sends over to his accountant, and they don't have to key it in again, but they can help do the analysis and tell him what the information is. When I had my retail computer business, I had QuickBooks, something like QuickBooks that ran my business, and it was the most useful thing that I had in running my business on a day-to-day basis. And it is much more useful if you understand how to read financial statements, because they will tell you quickly how your business is running. I'll give you an example. There was a recession in the oil business, and most of my customers were oil business type customers. And we were, by this time, after 10, 15 years, we were selling computers and software and equipment and all, as well as consulting services to all of these oil operators. And there was a terrible recession, and things got very tight, and I had to lay off people and all of that. And we were just running hand to mouth. And my bookkeeper, who did my financial statements for me, came in one day and she said, "I did your last month's financial statement, Ted, and you lost $30,000. And I said, "Judy, there's no way I could have lost $30,000. I wouldn't know it." And we didn't. And she said, "No, yes, you did here." And she gave me the financial statements, and that right there it was, $30,000 loss. And I said, "I just don't understand this, Judy. If you can give me the full report, let me look at it tonight and I'll get back with you. Well, that kind of ticked her off because, she thought I was questioning her for some reason. But I knew how to read a financial statement. And so I went through the whole report and I found it. I had that month bought $30,000 worth of computers. Now, because we were in a real tight financial situation, my suppliers had put me on COD. So when I got $30,000 worth of computers in, I wrote a check for $30,000 on the delivery of the system. We then put all of that stuff in the warehouse, and that was what I had bought to handle for the next month's worth of equipment sales. And instead of recording the $30,000 check as an expense that went into inventory, which was in the back room, she recorded it as cost of sales. Therefore, my financial statement showed a loss of $30,000. Had it been properly coded so that that $30,000 check that came out of the bank went into assets in inventory, it would have shown that I made no money that month, but I didn't lose any money. So I called her the next day and I explained that to her. And, if I couldn't have read the books though, and she told me flat to my face that day, she said, you just need to file for bankruptcy, Ted. You're starting to lose money and you need to get out as quickly as you can. Well, I finally sold the business 5 years later, and we had gotten out of that recession and we were making money hand over fist. By the time I finally sold my business, and I didn't have to file for bankruptcy. So knowing how to read a financial statement is very important to you when you get your business running. You need to understand your tax situation. And so now so I want to go next to, let me go through this. I don't think I told you that my partner Phil isn't going to be here, so I'm doing his part. These are some of the financial and other consultants that you're going to need. And these are key people in your business. You're going to need a banker. You're going to need an insurance agent. You're probably going to and should have a lawyer. And you're going to need someone doing bookkeeping, accounting, and tax work for you. Now, there are all kinds of different people like this. And what you should do is interview insurance agents and lawyers and people like that. Go talk to them about your business and what they can do for you, and find the ones that are compatible with you. And bookkeeping people too. Find the ones that know what they're doing and you can have a good relationship with. It's very, very important. Now, in the handout that you will get this afternoon or tomorrow, when you get the copy of this presentation, will be 2 sheets of paper which give you more background information on bookkeeping and accounting and lawyers and insurance and bankers and all of that. So it's just more information than we are showing you on the screen. Determine the services they offer. Are they right for you? Talk to more than one. Understand the fee structures, and then lock in a relationship. And I had my computer retail business for 16 years. I sold it, after 16 years. But during that time, I had one lawyer, I had one banker, I had one insurance agent, et cetera, that I worked with all during that time. So I can't talk, I can't teach you QuickBooks, but we talked about QuickBooks because it's widely used. It's used by most bookkeepers and CPAs. It's easy to learn. It's easy to generate customized financial reports. And in addition, my son uses his QuickBooks for invoicing and things like that as well. And keeping up his customer base and all of that. It's easy to learn. It's relatively inexpensive. It really is. can grow to much larger than you are when startup. And if you are too large for QuickBooks, congratulations. There are others after that, but it is a very capable, flexible. It'll handle many different types of businesses. So it isn't just one type of business. And I was very lucky in my retail computer business because I had a bookkeeping system. It wasn't QuickBooks that did all of this for me. I ended up customizing it to the point where it exactly matched my business in every way. And so flexibility is useful because QuickBooks will handle many different kinds of business structures. You can do credit cards through QuickBooks. You can pay your bills and banking online through QuickBooks. So we strongly recommend QuickBooks. In addition, I strongly recommend that you have a spreadsheet program that you know how to use. Now, the #1 spreadsheet program is Excel by Microsoft. It is phenomenally powerful and good. I use it all the time. There are other spreadsheet programs that can do all the same thing that are cheaper than buying Microsoft Excel, Word, Outlook, and so forth through Microsoft. But that's not very expensive. I think a license for Microsoft Office is maybe what, $65 a year, something like that. It's hard to get anything as good as those programs any cheaper than that. For instance, I know Apple, when they sell you a Mac or iPad or something like that, they throw in their spreadsheet and word processing program and presentation program free with the computer. And that's great. And they're good programs. It's just, it's not QuickBooks and it's not Excel. So what kind of company are you going to be? You can be a sole proprietorship. You can be a partnership. You can be a limited liability corporation, or you can be what we call a C Corp. That's a full corporation. Being a full corporation is normally reserved for larger companies. A sole proprietorship is you yourself in business for yourself. And while that's very easy, all you have to do is it can be Ted Windecker sales, or it can be whatever you want to call it, as long as if you're not using your name, you get a certificate from your county called an assumed name certificate that you run the business in. The problem with a proprietorship, and if you bring in someone else into that sole proprietorship, you end up with a partnership. A proprietorship and a partnership have one disadvantage, and that is there is no liability protection. That you personally and your partner personally are liable for everything, and everything that you own and your partnership own are assets behind that liability. If you go to a limited liability corporation, which costs a few $100s to set up, it's pretty easy. You can do it online. You have very limited liability, and the liability only extends to your corporate assets, your company assets, not your personal assets. And that's why most small companies are LLCs. And then large corporations generally require a lot more bookkeeping. They require a board of directors, which an LLC doesn't. And so typically at SCORE, we recommend that if you are forming a business, we recommend you form it as a limited liability corporation. It's easy and very inexpensive to set up. LLCs, don't have any constraints against raising funds. And the other thing that you want to be aware of is tax liability. In a sole proprietorship and a partnership, basically your company is you. And so if your company makes $100,000 in profit, you file that on your personal income tax return. and you pay taxes on your personal income tax return. A corporation, what's called a C corporation, basically is taxed on corporate tax rates. And so a corporation is like an individual. It is taxed separately from the people who own it. There in the middle, there's this thing called an S corp, which was originally considered a small corporation. This now is taken over primarily by LLCs, where the profits of the business flow directly to the owners like they do in a sole proprietorship and a partnership. An LLC can be either. An LLC can have the form of a regular corporation where the corporation files its tax returns itself and pays based on the corporate tax rates, or it can file as it would be a sole proprietor, where the profits or losses of the business flow directly to you, and you file those as part of your personal income tax return. When I first started my own business, I went to a bank. I had a contract from the John Z. DeLorean Corporation to help the development of the DeLorean sports car. That's the sports car that was in Back to the Future. And I needed $50,000 to buy a bunch of equipment to do this. And I went to a bank and I asked for a loan, and I didn't have any assets to pledge against the loan. So the banker told me, you need an angel investor. The first time I'd ever heard the word angel investor. So we went to the angel investors, and they set up like an LLC, an S corporation, where our losses for the first few years would flow directly to them, and they could take those losses off on their income tax returns, personal income tax. These were all oil men in the oil business, and they had a lot of income, and in every dollar that they reported as being lost by my little company took $1 off of the income that they paid taxes on their personal income tax. So there are advantages to having a small LLC that's run by sole proprietorship until such time as you get into a tax position where it's cheaper to have the corporation pay the taxes. Anyway, these are the things you need to look at, but look at an LLC. So there are specific parts of your financials that we call financial statements that tell about your business. They're all interrelated, and they all work together to tell the story of your business. The first is a P&L. That's called a profit and loss, and it reports a revenue, cost of revenue, expenses, and profits or losses. And it reports for a specific period of time. You typically get, you certainly get a P&L for a year. This is, but you also get a P&L every month, and every month is different because every month has different revenues, different costs, different expenses, and so forth. A balance sheet basically lists the financial condition of the company at any one date. So it lists the assets that your company has: cash in the bank, accounts receivable, inventory, deposits, office equipment and furniture. It doesn't report, your balance sheet doesn't report sales and revenue or expenses. It reports assets. It also reports liabilities. These are things that you owe. For instance, money you owe suppliers, or money that you owe lenders, or things like that. And the difference between assets and liabilities is an asset column called equity. Equity is the amount invested in your business plus all retained earnings. So at the end of a year, your balance sheet is going to show retained earnings, that this was the profit or loss this year. Those are your retained earnings. And so your equity is equal to your assets minus your liabilities. or assets are equal to liabilities plus equity. That's the fundamental equation of a balance sheet. Now, the balance sheet entry that my bookkeeper made by mistake was in inventory. Instead of taking what out of cash, the 30,000 I spent, and putting it into inventory, she took the cash out of the bank, pardon me, didn't mean to go there, and put it into cost of goods sold, cost of revenue. It should have gone into inventory. She put it in revenues, cost of revenues instead, and showed me reporting a loss at the end of the month. All right, so your cash flow statement, then there's a third statement called the cash flow statement. And what it does is it reports cash in your business. The cash balance at the end of the prior accounting period, how much money you have in the bank. The cash balance at the end of the current period, current accounting period, how much money you have now, and all activities during that month that generated or used cash. You know, for instance, money that was received on sales and things like that. And the cash flow is very useful in telling you the story about cash. A lot of small businesses tend to look at their cash flow statement or look at cash in the bank, their cash balance in the bank. And if it's high, they think they're doing very well. If it's low, they think they're doing poorly. When it's actually the P&L and the balance sheet that really tell you how your business is doing. And the cash flow statement, the reporting of cash, just tells you how you made those things happen with cash flowing through your business. So here's a statement of operations. This is a P&L basically. And it shows the prior year on the right and the current year on the left. And typically your these statements are certainly produced at the end of every year. But you can get one every month if you want to see, you know, if that's useful to you. But you see that it totals up the revenues from services and hardware sales. So the total revenues are revenues for that period are total. That's for the whole year. Cost of revenues. This is where that $30,000 would have gone in the financial model. And then the gross profit, which is the cost of revenue subtracted out of the total revenues. Then there are operating expenses. So you had selling expenses and general administrative expenses. You had depreciation on equipment that you bought. You add those together. These are the expenses to operate. And then, so that lists $79,000 in operating expenses. Then you had $59,000 from income. That's, you had interest income and interest expenses, leaving a pre-tax income of $59,200. So that's your operating profit for the year, $59,200. And then here he shows an estimated federal income tax at 35%, which shows your net income would be $38,480 off of that $59,000. So you would walk away after having done $230,000 in sales revenue with $38,480 in income. Notice that there are two blocks here that are highlighted. That's because that information goes to another report. Now, this is a balance sheet for the same period of time. And in the balance sheet, you see that in this period, you had $50,000 in cash, whereas last year you had $40,000. In this one, you had $10,000 in accounts receivable. You haven't collected that money yet, but you have it as a receivable. And you have inventory sitting in the back room ready to be sold of $20,000. So your total current assets are $80,000 You have property and equipment valued at $40,000, desks, computers, lamps, a truck, whatever it is you have. So you have total assets of $120,000. You have current liabilities down under your liabilities and equity. You have current liabilities of accounts payable, $40,000. You have customer deposits. They've given you a deposit on services or equipment. And until you bill them and make a receivable out of that, that deposit is a liability that you owe them until you provide an invoice for the services or products they're buying. And then you may have notes payable that you've borrowed money at the bank and you have notes payable on the long term of $9,000. So your total liabilities are $59,000. The difference between your $120,000 in assets and the $59,000 in liabilities is $61,000. That's your equity in your business. That's what your business is worth to you. And your total liabilities and stockholders' equity is $120,000, which is exactly equal to the total assets. So, and this is a statement of cash flow. And notice that the numbers up above in the statement of cash flow come from the P&L. And down at the bottom, the statement of beginning cash and ending cash come from the balance sheet. The cash flow analysis. So again, this is a summary of cash flow showing the net income for last year, depreciation on your capital equipment and so forth like that. That's an expense. Your nets for accounts receivable, inventory, accounts payable, and customer deposits shows net cash provided by your operations at $33,000. And then you have a $20,000 purchase of property and equipment. It's a loan you took out and so forth. And at the bottom of this, you see that the cash equivalent at the beginning of the year was $40,000. The cash equivalent at the end of the year was $10,000. And right above it, the net increase or decrease in cash was $10,000. Again, another way to look at your business that's very helpful in running your business. So the P&L is important whether or not you plan to raise money, because it tells you whether your company is making a profit. When I was in the computer business, a lot of my customers were retailers, and I was selling them retail point of sale systems. That's one of my customers. The others were oil companies. And with that, I discovered that almost all the retailers back then had no idea whether they were making money. All they knew is whether there was money in the bank. And if there was no money in the bank, they were unhappy. And if there was a lot of money in the bank, they were happy. And honest to God, that oftentimes has absolutely nothing to do with whether your business is successful or not. Using your financial statements allows you to reassess your business plan, identify problems and obstacles, and go back and edit your business plan if it's time to change some of your assumptions in your business plan. It's a good way to measure performance. It's a good way to forecast what funds you'll need. And typically, if you're looking at fundraising, those people are going to want at least 2 years of forecasts in your profit and loss and cash flow. When you are doing this kind of financial analysis, you're making a whole lot of assumptions about your business. Be sure to document the assumptions that you make. If you're working on an Excel spreadsheet and you're putting your sales in, and the first month it's $5,000 in sales, and the second month it's 6, and the third it's 7, and then it goes to 20 and 25 and 30, you need to put somewhere in that spreadsheet, maybe on a different tab, what assumptions you made there to go from 7,000 to 20,000 in 1 month. What are the assumptions? Because I promise you, a year from now, you may not remember exactly what assumptions were made in that spreadsheet. So always document your assumptions. And then with all of that information, as things change, you can tweak your forecast to make it much more like realistic. So startup costs and expenses. So here's a list of different startup costs. Legal and accounting fees to set up, fees to register as a corporation or an LLC, licenses, permits, and certifications with the state and federal and maybe even local governments. Initial investments in inventory, equipment, furniture, and vehicles. This, I went to the bank because I needed equipment to do some of the manufacturing for DeLorean. Development costs in your website and expenses like that. Any renovation to the building, deposits on rented equipment, prepayment for insurance and so forth, signage, and then cash. You know, especially if you're a retail operation, you need cash in the register before you open up. And in addition, you will need working cap. You might need working capital. So here's a typical business, a little bakery, and here's some startup costs. These costs are expended before you open the door of the bakery. Architectural fees, electrical, structural, mechanical services, kitchen equipment and office equipment, permits, total $9,000. And then they're talking about capitalizing all of those build out costs and then depreciating them. So even though you have had to spend cash $9,000 for those, you can depreciate those at $150 a month to get that money back through depreciation. And then other startup expenses, legal deposits and things like that. So from this business here, your financial model says, I need $13,000 to open the door. So here is a spreadsheet forecast of this business. We have we have revenue from cakes, breads, and cookies, and going across from January to July, the first, 7 months, shows revenue increasing from 3,800 up to 24,000 by July. You need to document the assumption that that's all based on. Your cost of revenues, again, what are the costs of ingredients, boxes and things, credit card fees are the costs. There's the total of all of your costs. Your gross profit then is listed as the difference between revenues and cost of revenues. Then you have your expenses, professional services, advertising, office and supplies, insurance, facility, rent expenses, so forth. And you come down that your total expenses for that month were $8,406 for the month. Well, your income was $3,800. So that means that you had a net loss. Well, that's okay. You started with $13,000. So all is good, right? Okay, so now we go to the next month and the next month and the next month. And what we find by doing this analysis is that it isn't until the 6th month that you start breaking even in the 7th month. In other words, your cash flow is negative until June. Well, what does that do to your operation? I mean, you obviously have gotten to a point by July that you actually have a net profit instead of a net loss for operations as you're getting started. What does that do? Well, here's another way of looking at it. We start, the column on the left is your startup costs. You notice that you put in $30,000 from your savings. You use $13,000 of that to get set up with fees and other expenses. So that left you $17,000 in the bank. Going to January, you had a $7,000 loss up at the top. You had $17,000 in the bank. The net was, at the end of January, you had $10,000 in the bank. Going to February, you had $10,000 in the bank. You had a loss of $6,000. You now had $4,000 in the bank. All of a sudden in March, you had $4,000 in the bank, but you had a loss of $5,000. All of a sudden, you have negative money. Well, that's scary. And so what this is telling you is that you're going to need an extra, if you look over under June, you're going to need an extra $10,000 over and above the 30,000 that you put in at the beginning. And you're going to need that money as soon as March in order to keep from going in the hole, because you can't, there's no such thing as negative money. I wish they would invent it, but they haven't invented it. It's called debt. But that debt has to come from somewhere, a bank or an investor or you. So this is what happens if you get an outside lender investment of $10,000 in March. All of a sudden, your cash flow remains positive. It goes to 0 in June, but it doesn't go negative. So let me just put that back up real quick so you can see that. So this is the benefit to you of doing a financial analysis spreadsheet on your business before it gets going. You can actually find, by understanding your costs, understanding your revenues, and putting it in a spreadsheet like this, you can understand your business well enough to know, well, you know, I probably should have gotten $40,000. Well, I don't have 40,000. Well, I'm going to have to figure out either some way to reduce my costs every month until I break even, or to find an outside investor. And you now have 3 months to do that, to our lender, to support your business so that once it reaches positive cash flow, it keeps going. So how much do you need and how will you use it? The working capital, equipment, staff. How long do you need the money? What type of investor will lend it to you or invest with you? This gives you the ability to plan ahead and to plan the fundraising so that you never run out of money and so that your business has the opportunity to grow and expand. So I hope that gave you a little bit of information about building a financial model for your business. And I think that it's probably the most useful things that you can learn to do is to build that financial model to describe your business and how much money it needs and how much money it's going to make. Now, there are a whole lot of resources available to you. You know, we know about the Georgetown Library. We know about other resources that are available to you. And I mean, there are plenty of government resources. The SCORE office in Austin, it's austin.score.org, has all sorts of information available to you. They even have sample business plans, like the data available in the Georgetown Library. And it's good to find business plans that are kind of in your area. Well, you can do that, or you can go to the SCORE national offices, score.org, and do the same thing. Look through their resources with the sample business plans and other resources. So all of this is available to you in order to build your successful business plan. We're right at the end. Does anyone have a question at this of what we're doing? And remember that you will get a copy of this presentation and you will get a video recording of the presentation today in order to help you remember all of this stuff. Anybody have a question?
Yeah, feel
Okay,
free to unmute if you do. Give it just a second. Well, seeing none, I think we will call it a day. I appreciate it, Ted. Thanks a bunch for another great presentation.
Well, thank you very much. And thank all of you for your interest in writing a business plan. Good luck to you. And hope to see you again soon at another SCORE presentation.